Everyone, welcome to GTM Secrets. Stephen Lowisz here. Talk about everything go-to-market, sales, marketing, RevOps, social, brand, you name it, product marketing, literally anything. We've had somebody on talking about it. Today I have Sue Funke, which, by the way, I love the last name. It's better than a hard Polish name. Sue, and we didn't really get into this. I want to give you a chance to do an intro on yourself here for a second, but Sue, you're in my least favorite part of marketing, and not because I don't see the value in it, but because I'm freaking terrible at brand and social.
Mhm.
Before we get into it too much, though, Sue, do you mind giving a little context on yourself here?
Sure. So I've been in digital media marketing since 2003. I started at a company called about.com, which is now Meredith's.dash. I worked there for 8 years, and I like to think of that as like I went to grad school basically and got paid to do it because I learned everything about digital media. And then while I was there, social media launched. And so I was the person that like got us onto social media and ran the accounts. And from there, I do stand up as well. So I'm a stand up comedian at night. And one of my buddies from stand up was working at Logo TV on RuPaul's Drag Race. And he was like, we need a social media writer. Would you be interested? And I was like, absolutely. So I went there. And that's how I started working for Viacom. And then I worked on a couple of seasons of Drag Race. It was the best time ever. And then I found my dream job, which was working at TV Land. I am a huge TV buff, and I just got to be the TV fanatic that I've always wanted. Ran over 100 accounts because we had all these classic TV show pages that I had to keep alive. So working in TV is really breakneck pace, and I wanted to try something different. So I had worked with VaynerMedia, Gary Vaynerchuk's
Yep.
company, for a little while, and I went over there because I thought it was really cool. I was only there for about 6 months though, because I realized that I don't love the agency side. I like being in-house, and I feel like it helps you, especially with social, be faster and more responsive with your brand messaging. So I went, the same guy Sean Hollenbach, the same guy who got me into A&E, was like, hey, he got me into Logo TV,
Yeah.
got me to A&E, and he was like, we need somebody to run this new live TV show that we're doing called Live PD. And so I went on a crazy ride there for 3 years running the social accounts for that show.
It's a good show, by the way.
Yeah, it was wild, and it was so much fun being in studio Friday and Saturday nights, 9 p.m. to midnight, and just like the fastest analytical turnaround that I've ever had to do for sure. But then, a buddy of mine, I actually know, then I went to a home remodeling company, total pivot, left New York, went to an employer brand, learned so much. And then a buddy of mine from about.com called me up and was like, hey, I need a social person for this B2B company. And one of my career goals is to try and do every single vertical of social and just become like the super well-rounded social media person. So this has been my latest challenge, is
I want to get into that, but you mentioned you're a stand-up, which I did not know. Who's your favorite comedian then? I'm very opinionated.
I mean, I think one of the beauties of being a stand-up comedian is that I get to see so much talent that people don't see. Like immediately I want to be like Leah Bonnema, Katie Compa, like people that like I was lucky enough to do stand-up and like run open mics with Kumail Nanjiani, who I think is one of the most brilliant. I've seen Donald Glover practice stand-up. Like it was just, I've been doing stand-up since 2000. It's been amazing, but I think that like there are so many amazing stand-ups that people just don't get to see.
That's very true. My wife and I are avid stand-up watchers, go to shows every time we travel. I
That's
love it.
awesome. Yeah.
So I will say, though, I like some of the off-color comedians. Uh, all right. So let's set the frame a little bit. You're at Absorb. You're selling an enterprise LMS. What I don't know is Absorb. Are you primarily focused on internal LMSs, or like, hey, go sell this and make it part of your marketing efforts, etc.?
Well, the cool thing about Absorb is that they're like more of a strategic learning system. You can go internal, external, and it's not just for your employees. It's great for partner training and customer training. They've really built up their platform to be able to be like a one-stop shop for learners. And I think that's what's exciting as a marketer is it's like different than the other products that I'm like marketing against or, competing against, if you will, on the LMS front, because I just think that Absorb has like so much product offering and such amazing customer service, which is also a plus. I'm a big believer in only working in brands that you believe in. And I really believe in Absorb.
So my background, like a decade ago, started out a little more, started out in HR consulting,
Oh, cool.
just family company. I knew nothing. But I'm familiar with the big LMSs out there, like the Thinkifics, and yes, I've heard of Absorb many, many times, etc. A lot of them, and tell me if I'm wrong, but a lot of them are targeting like head of L&D or CHROs, that sort of a deal. Is that kind
Yeah.
of your key persona?
Yes, but also like we help a lot with sales teams. So sales,
And
finance, yeah, like I would say even like the healthcare industry, they don't always have an L&D department, but they have a department that's working towards that. So it's like those kind of things are like it gets really niche sometimes. And especially like consultants, I would say, are a great target audience for us because of the e-commerce
yeah.
commerce angle of selling courses.
So God bless you. I've said this for those that listen to this podcast. I've said this many times, and you're probably the fourth or fifth person that we've had on that targets HR in different capacities, never from an LMS. It's like the worst function to sell into ever. And that's my opinion. That's not a fact. I have been to way too many SHRM conferences, and for those that don't know, Society of Human Resource Management, they make me want to drill a hole through my head. So you being you have more personality than what typical CHROs might have. How do you make what you're selling like fun or not even fun? That's the wrong word. Engaging on social when there's some very, very dry people.
It's like a misnomer. I don't know. I've met a few people now within the vertical, and I do think that like I was able to go to DevLearn, and like is in Vegas. So maybe I just saw the wild HR people and
Let,
L&D people, but they were really fun and they have a personality. And I think that no matter what, something engaging and entertaining is something engaging and entertaining, no matter.
let me rephrase.
Okay.
During business hours, they are very dry and boring.
Yes.
When you think about it, like HR was started in the 20s or 30s to make sure they're not sued and keep compliant, etc. Right? They're the gatekeeper. I've been to enough SHRM conferences to also see the debauchery that goes on there when you get a couple drinks into those people.
Yes, exactly.
But give me an example. Let's start here. What are one of the better posts that you've seen work at Absorb that were actually engaging, and what channel was it on?
I think that one of the things that like I'm a big believer on is like fish where fish is on. So we know they're on LinkedIn. I
Yeah.
can make a lot of cool stuff on Instagram. I can make a lot of cool stuff on Facebook, but especially when I'm an organic marketer, I'm just going to stick to LinkedIn. I think one of the things that I've seen some great reach and subscriptions on are the LinkedIn newsletters. I have so much fun with my LinkedIn newsletter. It's like animated GIF-a-palooza and just silly jokes thrown in with some serious stats and some understanding of how learning has high ROI for your company. And it's like, as a comedic writer, it's one of my favorite challenges, I would say, just trying to make it something that doesn't feel like you're just reading bullet points and stats. But I've seen some great like impressions on there, and our subscriptions have amazed me. Like I put down that I was like, okay, we'll probably get like maybe 2.5K people signing up for it. We within the first month got 5K and we've doubled that already, and now we're close to like over 11K subscribers, and like I can't even believe it. Like it's awesome.
I'm pretty good on LinkedIn, but that's one feature I haven't used. I started cracking the code a little bit on how to get some decent reach with posts, not even from the company, but just from me. So I know what LinkedIn does. I don't know how to use it well.
They change constantly.
True. The newsletters, correct me if I'm wrong, they're fairly new. And with that, I've never seen the analytics they provide. So do you know if
Yeah.
those subscribers are in HR, your ICP, etc.?
Actually, yeah, that's something that's really cool is that they have a fleshed out section One of the things that's tough is like LinkedIn isn't very friendly with their API when it comes to analytics. So you're going to be hard pressed to find a third party analytics tool. But I do appreciate that LinkedIn has like, this is the location, this is the jobs, and like these are the people. So we are hitting target markets on that newsletter, which is really nice. And one of the things that I was really excited about is that I've seen competitors reading it. Like that was like, oh, okay.
Watch
I
out.
see you looking over the fence.
That's awesome. Well, I don't know if you know what we do. We identify people on our sites. And yes, I have seen our competitors checking out our sites and whatnot. Okay, so that's interesting. If I'm how do you market a newsletter like as interesting in general? I mean, I get like if I'm scrolling through LinkedIn and I see someone shared it, that's different, but you have to get people to follow it before you get those shares in the first place, right?
Yeah.
When I think newsletter, I'll go back to that hole that I'd like to drill in my head. That's the first thought that comes to mind. How do you get those first even 1,000 people?
I think that's one of the things that I'm going to just thank LinkedIn for because it's a newer feature. They push it out. Like your first newsletter hits all your followers' feeds. So it's like one of those things that it's like the Facebook Super Bowl ad of content because it also does what LinkedIn wants you to do, which is create those long form pieces of content because you're
Yeah.
basically writing an article. And that is something that they can put out and gets it more searchable for Google because we had one of our newsletters show up as like a key, one of our key search terms. And like that was like, we were all shocked when we saw that. But I think it just makes sense that it's like, of course, LinkedIn's prioritizing this piece of content because social platforms always do that when it comes to like new features, features that will get them more searchable, like, and features that are basically what people on their platform want. Like you're saying with like HR are people that don't mind reading something heady, don't mind like they are people that want to get into the nitty gritty of the information. And I think trying to provide a newsletter that's like scannable, easy to read, but gives you links to the actual like long form content that they're going to want, I think that's where it's at. Like we also link out to like top stories in L&D and also L&D jobs because looking in the forums of all like the learning and development, instructional designs, I see most of the chatter being focused on like looking for work. I think that we've seen a huge flooding of teachers into this space and it's really become a more competitive field. So knowing that that's what my readers might be thinking about, that's something that I want to provide.
So I'm creeping on your newsletter right now. You have 5 out and you have 11,000 subscribers, give or take, from that alone. Okay. And I noticed they're not as long as like a full on blog. And yes, I do see a lot of the GIFs or uh, memes, whatever. That's interesting that you did have that much reach just from that. How often do you recommend doing them? Is it weekly or monthly or what?
I'm a one man band of social. Like I have a great creator that I work with who's amazing. He's an excellent designer, but I'm the only one writing and putting out content. So I do it once a month.
Okay.
I do think that like it's very important on social no matter what to try and keep a steady drumbeat. So putting it out every month, like I try and make it the first Thursday of every month. I try and make it early in the morning. So that way it like kind of because it also hits people's inboxes as well if you subscribe. So that's another added bonus. So it like gets people to see your stuff and also reminds them about you. So I think it's a great feature. I also want to say there's this really interesting thing that I wanted to bring up about LinkedIn is like impressions are very hard this month. And like something that I've seen across the board. And I've been doing some research and still social status IO does it's a great like it's a great tool to use if you're in LinkedIn as a brand because they have the benchmark for every company page. And one of the things that they benchmark is not just impressions, but also video view rate. And the video view rate is usually like 10 to 15% for the past year. In March, it was 28.96%. It is the biggest jump and discrepancy that I've ever seen. And I don't think of it as a discrepancy. I think it really shows that for years now, LinkedIn's been like, we're big on video, but
Yeah.
they're really trying. And that says that they're prioritizing it So that was something that immediately I was like, we got to get some more vertical videos out.
So what's your this is all anecdotal, and by the way, I had never heard of Social Status IO. I'm going to check them out. We use, I think, Agora right now,
Yeah.
which is, I mean, it's like Hootsuite, Buff, or anything else.
Yeah. I don't use them. I just love their blog and their like resources are great.
So good to know. I have found I've had only a handful of posts go viral, right? Not millions
Yeah.
views, but tens and hundreds of thousands. They all have been text only. And I
Interesting. Yeah.
get an image or a video to get impressions worth of crap. Why? Do you know how to explain that? Because yes, I hear video, and then again, anecdotally, it doesn't mean, person of one doesn't mean anything, but I've only gotten text only posts to work.
Yeah. I think that it's once again that search aspect of it is that they are trying to get you into keywords. They're trying to like, and they very much run their search that way. I think that one of the things that I see in terms of like huge viral posts on LinkedIn are actually very funny stuff or very like emotional. Like it's that too, but I think they don't prioritize it as much as the other social stuff because it's more work focused. Like stuff that like leadership quotes, like those things do so well. And like I don't necessarily always have that luck. And I think a lot of it is because we brand ours. And like I think that there's a fine line between like branded content and fun content or like viral content because you'll look at it and like some stuff just like it's just white text on black background and it
Mhm.
is getting a bazillion. Like for video though, I agree. I don't see these viral videos on LinkedIn. I don't know who's getting them besides Gary Vaynerchuk. Like he's the only like sometimes you'll see a Jay Shetty one pop up. Like it's those kind of guys that I see. I don't see a lot of video on LinkedIn that isn't promoted content. What I will say that's interesting is that if you go to the app on the bottom, they now have a video icon and they have a feed that is just like TikTok. And I think it's a very weird play for the platform,
You're right.
but
I've never
yeah,
noticed.
no one has, trust me. But I think that they're trying very hard and they're serving that to try and get it. And I think one of the interesting things too is you'll see a lot of LinkedIn video. Like I see a ton of LinkedIn learning, LinkedIn news videos. So I think that's also telling because they're probably investing in creating their own video. So they want more people to use it.
Well, for what it's worth, I think at this point, whatever Gary V touches turns to gold.
Yeah,
He's got the celebrity to do what he wants.
absolutely.
I'd love to have a chat about what it was like to work for the guy, but that's a different conversation. That's interesting. Now, what I have got into work on my personal profile, is if you're polarizing, and I don't mean like politics or anything like that, but if you're very polarizing, you get more reach. But
Absolutely.
then you also piss off a good chunk of your, potential customers, right?
Hmm.
Like me, I call out some of my competitors that I think are just unethical, not because they're competitors, but because I think they're unethical. And that usually stirs the pot and gets a good response. But I've never figured out how to get a company page, which should matter much more than my own page, to actually get reach. Like you guys have, I think, like 70,000 followers or something like that.
Yeah. 75K. Yeah.
But how? Because you can't be an asshole from a company page like I am from my personal page.
No, in fact, I'm the exact opposite. I'm very nice. What I do is I do hours of engagement as the brand. I am literally going after my fishes. I am a hunter on LinkedIn. I'm trying to find communities where my target audience are at, trying to find their viral posts and going through and seeing the people who like it, who are in HR, who are in L&D, going to their pages, seeing what they're posting about, engaging with them. Like I do so much engagement. Like I literally have to tell, like I take on more and more responsibilities as I've been at Absorb. But like the one thing I've told my boss is like, if we want to keep our organic reach, I have to keep this like half hour to an hour block a day where I just focus on engagement. And it's exhausting, but it helps. And it also, it's great research.
So, all right, let's make this really practical. You're coaching me, but I think a lot of people will get a lot out of this. I work in the tech space, so there's a lot of cool products and no one knows about them because they have no concept of branding, right? I'm a marketer, but I suck at branding. I realize if I'm you and okay, I hear engagement, I open LinkedIn, phone, desktop, whatever, I can go look up interesting posts for me or like, what do these marketers say, which is my ICP. And what do I say? I agree. Good thoughts. Like a lot of those look like AI bots at this point.
Yeah.
Right? So how do you provide essentially an opinion, but you're a company and you can't be too opinionated one way or the other?
So LinkedIn has a feature for company pages that I think is very underutilized, which is called your feed, and you can follow other company pages.
Oh,
So I go through, and it automatically has you a feed where you are your company responding. And what I like to do is find articles, and then I find snippets of the articles and like be like, okay, this is something that resonates with our brand, resonates with our messaging. And then I comment like, hey, this quote is so great. Like, we appreciate your insights. And sometimes it's just like, these are super helpful tips. Thank you so much. Yes, I am worried that sometimes people think I'm a bot. I think there are times where it is just easier to be like, that's great. Like it's just sometimes the bots are right. But I will say that like the more like personal I can get. I think one of the things that I like to do too is just be like congratulate companies on their wins. Like this one company redid their website and posted about it, and I was like, it looks great because it does. It doesn't like they're not one of my competitors. They're somebody who's just in the space of HR, and I was like, yeah, looks great. And the person wrote back immediately was like, thanks so much. Like that kind of thing is like, you know, I'm trying to be genuine as our brand. And I think that's what's the really hard thing about branding is that you have to just really live and breathe your brand voice. And like everyone who works on it has to come together. Like the other content manager that I work with, she is a genius at writing blogs and keeping our brand voice on the blog. And like we like meet up at least twice a week, just being like, what about if we started being this kind of funny? Or like, what if we did this kind of meme? Would that be something? And like just checking each other to make sure that the brand voice is consistent is
yeah.
something that I think is really important as marketers when you're focusing on branding. And once you know that brand voice, you can have a lot of fun.
How often do you recommend posting?
Changes. I think one of the things that's tough about doing social is that everyone wants their post on social.
Mhm.
Everyone thinks their post should be on social, and there are times that it absolutely should, but I think it makes it hard because sometimes you overpost because it's like, well, we have a webinar, we have a conference, we have this, we have that, and then you don't get to do the real marketing, brand awareness stuff that you need to do. So it's a careful game. I would say LinkedIn likes personal profiles to post very regularly.
Yeah.
Like they love it if you would do Monday through Friday. I do love B2B marketing because weekends aren't a thing. When I was in TV, I had to work so many weekends and holidays because like Labor Day weekend marathons and that kind of stuff. But like that's the nice thing is like you can just do Monday through Friday. LinkedIn has a feature where you can schedule through the platform natively. I think that's something to utilize. But before you post, and this is for every platform, try and engage on the platform 15 minutes before and 15 minutes after. It is time consuming and it can be annoying, but it is literally one of the most tried and true ways of getting your social good
Interesting.
for companies, like it's like try posting at least once a month because they know that companies don't do it that often. I think one of the things that companies forget to do is also focus on employer brand. LinkedIn is first and foremost a job search engine. So
Mhm.
make sure that you're showing that you're hiring. And when you do that, they'll make sure that your other stuff gets seen as well.
Interesting. Okay. My gears are turning on how I can apply some of this.
Yeah.
And this is a broad question, but my last big question is going to be you're no longer in the business of live PD where you have fast action clips and whatnot, which by the way, I've watched too many hours of that.
Not as much as I have, I can guarantee it.
No, I haven't seen all of them, but I used to watch it regularly. Or there'd be hour-long stretches of reruns on weekends, like 4 or 5 hours, and I'd see some of them. All that being said, you're no longer in that space. You're not targeting consumers. What I have to assume that there's a lot that you learned that you did apply to absorb and B2B in general and whatnot. What were some of the key takeaways?
I think for all entertainment and marketing, get your point across within the first 3 to 5 seconds as possible. Like, try and make it as compelling as possible as soon as possible. I think when it comes to television, it was always about finding your fishes. And like, I think that is another thing that's like that and storytelling. Those are like the two big ones. And like, no matter what brand you're doing, you want to be compelling with your storytelling, your visuals, or your text even. Like, I think one of the things with like LinkedIn, when you were saying like long text posts, break it up, make it compelling to read, make it scannable, make it something that is user friendly. And I think that one of the things with television that rings true for everything is like people just want to be interested, entertained. Like BuzzFeed used to have like the core five, where it's like you have to make them either laugh, feel like like laugh, feel sentimental, feel like cry, or get angry, or take an action like vote. Like those are the things that like really make you engage. And I think those are things that are just universal for anything. Like, and for B2B, I'm not going to make you cry. I'm not going to like show a dog like greeting a soldier coming home. You know,
Not
like that
a
doesn't have
McLaughlin type ad.
like that is a long walk around the block. But like I think that there are great humor sites for HR, and I think there is something fun about it. Like a lot of stuff that we do is centered around gamification this year. So like that's something that's like makes learning a lot more effective, and it has been like statistically proven. So like let's talk about the sentimental note. All right, like let's try and make our use cases like video games. So like we made one that like it feels very similar to Tetris or Mario Brothers, and it's one of those things where like you're going to engage in it because it gives you that feeling.
Yeah,
And those are things that like keep lasting within the feed.
makes sense. It's interesting. I lied. Last question now. What are so you have like carousel formats, you have PDFs, you have video, you have live, you have all these different formats. Again, the only thing that I figured out that works for me, which is not statistically significant, is just plain text and that's it. Do you find that mixing up the mediums or leaning heavily into one that's working well? Like, how do you approach all these different modes of reaching somebody?
It's a good question. I think one of the things that you should always try is to mix up the kind of content that you want. If you're doing the same thing over and over, they're less likely to send you into people's feeds because it's just you're doing what it's expected. Also, it's the same thing as like what I was saying with the newsletter. Whatever's bright and shiny that they put out, like video being something they're doubling down on, you're more likely to get into the feed. So like polls were something for a while that like you
Yeah.
saw, like LinkedIn was all polls last year or like a couple of years ago. And that was because some designer worked their butt off at LinkedIn and made that, and they paid that person and that team a lot of money. So they want to make sure it gets used. So think about it like, you know, no matter what, it's still a business. So whatever their like new feature that they're touting, you want to make sure that that's in your like schedule. The more you try and diversify your content, the more reach you'll get consistently. And I think that's one of the things like so often people are like hit virality. Virality is the most important. I think consistency is way more important. The more consistently that you're like showing growth and value to your users, the more likely you'll get into more feeds. Because it's like, are people engaging with it? Are people sharing it? Are people doing stuff with your content? That's great. Yes, it's amazing if you get tens of thousands of people, but that also is very hard to keep up. Rarely are those pages constantly doing that. And in fact, sometimes in some algorithms, if you get 10,000 views, your next post is getting 300. Like it's like it doesn't necessarily like it's like, oh, it's gonna take that long time because they're still busy like feeding that big post.
Yep. No, that makes perfect sense. I do see dramatic changes in my reach. One day it's 1,000, the next day it's 250,000, the next day it's 300.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And then I have learned to take the good ones and sponsor them as thought leadership posts on LinkedIn ads. That's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way of utilizing ads.
Well, this is super helpful, I know, for me. And again, we have startup marketers and founders all the way to Fortune 500 listeners, etc. So I think this is super insightful. So I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and share some expertise.
Yeah, I hope it was helpful. And I'm on LinkedIn and all social media as the Sue Funk. Funk is spelled with an E that you don't say. So people feel free to reach out if you have any further questions. I'm happy to talk social anytime.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.